Have you ever imagined that an old laptop charger could be repurposed into a homemade soldering tool? It might sound unlikely, but it's entirely doable. Before getting started, there's one important thing to keep in mind. The charger may be old, but it still needs to be in working condition. Using the charger's cable, I'll extend both wire ends to make the setup easier to handle and more flexible during use. The original wires are often too short, which can limit movement and make the work area feel cramped. By adding extra length, it becomes much more convenient to position the tool properly and work with better control. To make it easier to tell the positive and negative wires apart, I'll connect each end of the charger's cable to separate wires in different colors. This way, during use, I can quickly identify the polarity and avoid confusion or wiring mistakes. Electrical tape is an essential item for covering exposed wire connections. It helps insulate the joint, prevent short circuits, and keeps everything safe during use. This is an alligator clip, a small but very useful tool for holding or connecting wires securely during the setup. Maybe no one has ever told you this, but an old spark plug can play a surprisingly important role when turning it into the heating tip for a homemade soldering setup. Thanks to its durable metal core and ability to handle high temperatures, it becomes a reliable bridge between the power source and the custom soldering tip. With this small and handy metal connector, I'll use it to join the threaded end of the spark plug to the homemade soldering tip. Its compact size makes the connection neat and secure, while also helping keep everything aligned during use. Next, I have a short piece of wire, and I'll use it to create a direct bridge connection. One end of the wire will be attached straight to the threaded tip of the spark plug, while the other end will be connected directly to the threaded body. The reason for doing this is to form a closed and controlled path for the current to pass through the spark plug itself. When the current flows across these 2 points, resistance builds up inside the metal, generating heat right at the tip area. This is exactly what we need to turn it into an effective heating point for the homemade soldering setup. Nothing goes to waste here. In this build, I'll also reuse the carbon rod from inside an AA battery and turn it into a homemade soldering tip. The reason for choosing this material is that carbon can withstand high temperatures without melting, while still allowing heat to concentrate at the tip. At the same time, it doesn't conduct electricity as aggressively as metal, which helps control the heating more steadily. That combination makes it a surprisingly suitable choice for shaping a simple but effective soldering tip. When assembling, be careful not to mix things up. We'll connect the threaded body of the spark plug to the alligator clip that is linked to the positive terminal of the power source. Getting this connection right is important to keep the current flowing in the intended path and ensure the setup works properly. As for the power cable from the laptop charger, it's not something we can realistically make ourselves. If you already have one available, that's perfect. Otherwise, you'll need to get a new one to ensure everything works safely and reliably. Seeing an electric arc form is a good sign that things are working, but that alone isn't enough to judge the result. To really understand how well it can solder small metal parts without damaging them, take a close look at this real-world test. Watch carefully before deciding whether to follow this recycling project. And that brings us to the end of this build, from a handful of discarded parts to something that actually works. It's a simple reminder that sometimes the value of a tool isn't in how much it costs, but in how creatively it's put together. If this idea sparked something for you, don't just watch. Give it a try, experiment a little, and see what you can create with your own hands. And if you found this project useful, stick around because there's always another build waiting just around the corner.